Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to be testing out the new Danessa Myricks Groundwork Blooming Romance palette. So this is her newest palette in this format. She did release the Groundwork Defining Neutrals palette, I believe back in the fall. I did review that one. I will leave that video link down below. But I really enjoyed this palette. This is one that I found to be a lot more intuitive than I initially expected, but also very unique. So I was very, very happy with that. So we will be going through the new palette. We will be doing a try on, as well as sharing some comparisons that I found with the original. But let's talk about this one first of all. This is the new Blooming Romance palette. This is a multi-use talc-free palette with velvet pomades and oil-absorbing powders that define eyes, brows, cheeks, and lips in shades of berries and mauves. So this does also include her Upsolite technology to absorb oil and give a blurring effect, which I actually have found to be very effective in any of the Danessa Myricks products that I have tested out. This does retail for $65 US or 88 Canadian. This does have a 12-month shelf life and is made in China. Opening up the palette, we can see it looks just like the original, except where the original is brown. This one is a really, really beautiful pinky purple. Very, very beautiful. So everything else about the packaging seems the same aside from the color. Opening up this color story, we have a beautiful, beautiful pinky mauve purple leaning palette. This is absolutely stunning. I can definitely see how this will be absolutely beautiful on the eyes as blush, perhaps on the lips. I don't see it for brows, perhaps with these two colors, but these are both going to be a little too deep for me. So let's quickly look at some swatches. We have Crush, Smitten, Dreamy, Allure, Desire, Adorn, Lovesick, Bliss, Evermore, and XO. So again, this palette looks absolutely stunning, and one thing I will say that was a complaint about the previous palette was that the pomades are large, the powders seem small, and it's really hard to get a brush into those. So I do still wish she would either make them the same pan size or perhaps make the powders a little bigger, but that's just my main complaint. I do understand, which I don't think I knew this with the initial palette, but the powders are meant to set the pomades. And when used on the eyes, the powders will get the best payoff if they are applied over top of the pomades. So we are going to do that today. We're just going to quickly create an eye look. I did use the original Defining Neutrals palette on my brows and to give myself a little bit of a bronze, not much, but just a little bit. So let's just get into it. All I have on my lids right now is a little bit of foundation. I think I'm going to start with this lightest pomade shade right here. And I think I'm actually going to apply this one all over the lid. And what I learned from working with the first palette too was that the pomades don't necessarily play well if you prime and set your eyes prior to using the palette. I am somebody with oily lids who typically needs to prime and set before I put anything on my eyes, but because she has that Upsolite technology in the pomades, I don't run into this issue with these palettes. And I really truly do enjoy the pomade formula. I find it very, very velvety, very soft, very easy to work with, easy to blend. Again, when I initially tried out this formula, I was a little confused, but again, it was completely new to me. And now that I've been playing with it for a significant amount of time, I actually really enjoy the formula. Grabbing a different brush, I think I'm going to dip into the Allure pomade, and I am just grabbing a BK Beauty 202. So this one I think I'm going to use to define the crease a little bit. That's a really pretty lid shade actually. This is a palette where I see myself gravitating more toward that top row with the lighter, softer shades. I will of course use these on the lips today just to kind of show you, but overall, I don't think that is something I would do. I can definitely see myself keeping this exclusively for eyes and cheeks, much like I do the Defining Neutrals palette. The defining neutrals I do use in the brows though, and I really love it for that purpose. That's really pretty. That blended very, very easily as well. These pomades are kind of like working with the Natasha Denona cream to powder formula, but almost a little bit softer and a little bit more blendable. I've also been on such a roll lately with somehow getting products before they're officially or released. And then this palette took its time coming to me, so I am a little bit late, but I still wanted to share my thoughts because I was really excited about this palette. That's a really pretty mauve, but I do think it ended up coming out a lot more pink than mauve. So I think to get a little bit more depth and to try out more of these shades, I think I'm gonna go into Bliss, the pomade. Oh, that's really pretty actually too. These are actually so much more easier to work with than I think. Looking at the shades in the palette, I keep getting a little bit intimidated by them, but then putting them on the eyes, they're actually so soft and easy to work with. They're beautiful. So I am just keeping this one more toward that outer corner. I love a good pink mauve eyeshadow moment. I noticed over the last week I've really been reaching for my pink shadows quite a bit more because I definitely retreated into my comfort zone of brown shadows over the winter and pretty much just didn't wear anything else, but I noticed I've been reaching for a lot more pink lately, which is kind of fun. Okay, I'm still thinking I might want a teeny tiny little bit more depth, so I'm gonna go into Evermore. Again, just keeping this to the outer corner, but just trying to get a little bit more depth. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Just again, really just carving out that V a little bit. I'm really, really enjoying how easy these are blending. Okay, so now that I have the outer corner work done, I think I'm gonna go back into Crush because I really want to redo my work. Placing that on the lid, kind of clean everything up. All right, so now that I have all of that done, I want to go into the shade Bliss, but the powder. And I kind of want to use this to set that outer corner shade. That actually brought a lot more depth into the look when I did that. Okay, I think that actually added the exact amount of depth that I was looking for. The pomades create such an incredible base for the look. They're so blendable, they're so easy to work with, but once you set with the powders, that's when you're gonna get the absolute most impact. You can use either one alone, but when you use them together, kind of like they're designed to be, you get the absolute best results and the most impact. Okay, I'm just grabbing another flat shader brush and I'm gonna go back into Crush, but I'm gonna go into the powder so I can set that lid shade. And once again, sort of getting that maximum impact that I was looking for. I really, really like how this look is coming together. I really do have a love of all matte looks. I just think that they end up looking so flawless, but for some reason I just always go for the shimmers. I don't know why. Every single time I do an all matte look, I always wonder why I don't do them more, and then I never start doing them more. I don't know what that's about, but I love that. I love how this look turned out. Okay, let me pop off camera. I'll pop on some mascara and then we'll come back to use this on the cheeks and the lips. Okay, so here is how the eye look came together. I'm actually really, really happy about the eyes. I love how easy they were to blend. I love the way the pomade sort of all blended together beautifully, created a really nice base, and they were just so easy to blend. It felt like they were all just kind of melting into one another and taking a lot of the work out of it for me. So by the time it came to use the powders, I didn't need to blend any powders. I just kind of needed to put them on. You know what I mean? I felt like I really didn't have to blend them. I just needed to apply them, blend a tiny bit, but really the work was done. So I really, really like that. And I think it's so pretty. So for the cheeks, I think I'm gonna use the shade Dreamy, which is this pinky shade right here. I think this might also be the lip shade. I couldn't really decide exactly where I wanted to go, but I'm just gonna take a Rephr 04 brush into that pomade and then just lightly apply that to the cheeks. Oh, that's pretty. A little brighter than I anticipated, but still really, really pretty. Definitely not nearly as pigmented as her actual cream blushes, but still very pigmented and very, very pretty. So same thing on the other side. And I did actually have my face set with powder, but the pomade is still blending and working perfectly. It's not catching on any of those powders or anything like that. So that is another point for the pomades. I am going to pop out the powder from Dreamy. They are very easy to pop out, but I just want to use this to set that pomade, and I didn't want to kind of get my brush into both. So I'm just using the same brush. I picked up the powder and I'm just setting. And that most certainly brought out a lot of vibrancy in the blush. Definitely a little bit brighter than I would typically like for a blush, but still quite pretty. Kind of wish I'd gone into Smitten right now, but it's too late. I can do that tomorrow. Okay, so that is the blush. Again, definitely more vibrant than I would typically prefer, but I still think it's really pretty. I think I want to go with that same shade for the lips, just for continuity. So I'm going to take a Sigma and Brianna Fox 3 brush. I kind of want to dip into that Dreamy pomade, and I want to try a little bit more of a liner kind of moment before I fill in the lips. But I just kind of want to see how this goes. That's actually pretty light, but it will go with the rest of the look pretty well. Okay, I'm just going to pick up that pomade on a finger. That's nice, but it feels very dry on the lips. That's why I don't tend to like products that are both for lip and cheek. It's actually a little bit not my favorite shade of pink on the lips. Okay, I just picked up Bliss on a finger, and I'm liking that much more on the lips. I still don't love this formula on the lips, but that shade is definitely better. I think I was playing it a little bit too safe before. All right, so here is the final look. I'm actually really happy with how this came out. So this palette is very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. I love a good pinky mauve color story, so I knew that I would enjoy this color story. I will pop up some swatches though, because when I was looking at this color story, I initially thought of the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 2 palette. And what's interesting is the bottom row of the Patrick Ta palette is all mattes, and it actually lines up pretty well with the bottom row of the Danessa Myricks palette. So I will pop up those swatches so that you can see them, but I thought that was interesting how well those two rows lined up. That being said, it doesn't really dupe that top row at all, but I just found that quite interesting. I do prefer the Patrick Ta powder formula, absolutely. I think in order to get the most impact out of the Danessa Myricks, you absolutely do need to apply the pomades and then the powders. The powders can be a little bit lackluster. The pomades can be a little bit light. You pair them together and they're just absolutely perfect. So I think that's interesting. Another quick comparison I wanted to note is actually with the Huda Beauty Cool Matte Obsessions palette. So you can actually see, I think, side by side some similarities that are going on in here. I will pop up the swatches, and I think there are definite similarities. I think that if you are thinking that the Danessa Myricks is going to be just an eye palette for you and you already have this, maybe you don't need the Danessa Myricks, but I will say obviously you get more shades, you can do more with the Danessa Myricks. So if you are really wanting more of these deeper shades rather than just the pinks and the mauves, then maybe this still has value. But if you're just really excited about those pinky mauves and you already have this, maybe you don't need the new one. So I thought that was interesting that there was actually some similarity there as well. Overall, I'm really happy with how the look turned out. I really like how the eyes turned out especially. Again, I loved how easy the pomades work together in blending, and then you set with the powder and it's just beautiful. I loved that. I Also really liked how the blush turned out. Definitely a bit vibrant. I would probably just stick with the pomade because it seemed really, really nice on its own. The powder made it a little bit more vibrant than I would typically like, but I still think it's really pretty. As a lip product, I do feel like this has set down to a bit more of a stain. I don't feel like it's going to go anywhere, which I really like. But at the same time, I just feel like it's way too dry on the lips, so I think that I would exclusively use this as a cheek and eye product, much like I do the defining neutrals. Speaking of defining neutrals, so I think this one ends up being a little bit more of a more versatile everyday palette just because it is those neutral browns, and you really can use this for a lot of different things: bronzer, eyes, brows, all of those things, whereas I'm probably not using Blooming Romance in the brows. Some things I've noticed that they've done a little bit differently are, I find there is an overwhelming fragrance from the defining neutrals. Not when you put it on the face, but when you open the palette, there is a fragrance. To me, it doesn't smell pleasant. I don't like it at all. And I notice it even when I get close to the palette. Like, I just have to put it on my desk and I can smell it. I don't even have to have it open just yet. With the Blooming Romance, that fragrance either isn't there or it's a lot more subtle. So I appreciate that they did that. Another thing that is a little bit different with the packaging, and it's just a minor thing. So if I were to pick this palette up off my desk and I were to only grab the top portion by mistake, it would kind of fall open, like the magnet's not very strong. They have fixed that with the Blooming Romance palette. You can see I only have a hold on the top and it's not falling open. So I just appreciate that as well from a packaging perspective. So I think she definitely came out with a really excellent palette in defining neutrals, but took note of the things that could use improvement and applied that, which to me is so rare for a brand to do. I still commend Danessa Myricks because I think she really does create new, innovative, exciting products in an industry that is definitely very repetitive. The industry is very saturated right now, and a lot of brands are becoming dupe brands or coming out with similar products to those that are already popular. Whereas Danessa Myricks, I feel like she's just doing her own thing. She's just creating, and I do think she's a genius. I think it's brilliant and I respect that so much. And I have even more respect for that when I see her implementing certain changes from things that were wrong with the first launch. I respect that a lot. So I have to say that I really, really like this palette. I'm actually super excited about it. Let me know down below if you are planning to pick this one up. I love that she launched it in advance of the Sephora savings event. So if you are interested, now is a perfect time to grab this one. But let me know down below all of your thoughts. I love hearing from you guys so much. If you have any questions about the palette that I maybe didn't quite touch on, let me know down below as well. I love hearing from you guys, and I will absolutely get back to you as soon as I can. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!